Hello, innovators, and welcome to another episode of the Heitland Show, where I connect the dots of innovation and entrepreneurship with my guests. Today's guest was part of the founding team at crowdcube.com, worked then with startups as mentor, advisor, and coach, and today is founder and COO at Everything, the financial experience that younger generations actually want. Michael shared his experience from being part of a radical growing startup at Crowdcube, funding advice for first time founders, the forming moments in his career. Please welcome to the show, Michael Wilkinson. Hello, Michael. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Looking forward.
Yeah, likewise.
By the way, I don't know if you can't see that. So for everyone on the podcast video version, I have a Swedish flag for Michael in the background because he's in Sweden. Can you see that? Yeah.
I can.
It's
No, I can't. I can't see
behind
it.
my head, basically.
Oh, very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. No, I can't. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, but bit of time in Sweden. One of my co-founders is over here, and luckily she's not here. But the main reason, my other half is Swedish, so I dip my time between Sweden and London.
Yeah, love Sweden. Still miss it. A couple of years back that we lived there. But that's not what we're supposed to talk today. Let's get into the topic. So before we go, of course, into the startups you have founded and how you work with startups in the past and what business you basically just launched or are about to launch. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. Okay. So I was actually born in South Africa, so a little bit further afield than both Sweden and the UK and Spain, where I think you are. So I spent the early part of my time there, but have been now a British native for the best part of 24 years, I think 24 years. So grew up in Devon. Down in the sunny southwest of the UK. Was very much one of the sporty variants. Growing up through school, played a lot of cricket, played a lot of hockey as well, and got my A levels and traipsed off to Manchester University, having absolutely no idea really what it was that I wanted to do. And ended up doing a business degree because I thought, well, yeah, business. There's lots of business around, so maybe I'll be a businessman. And actually, reflecting on it now, I got some really awful careers advice. I think careers advisors need to improve significantly. No one even mentioned that actually entrepreneurship would be something that I could do. Or starting a business could be something interesting. Everything was like, go to the best possible university and do something you want to do for the rest of your life. So yeah, I ended up doing a business degree there at Manchester, and I enjoyed my time. I learned next to nothing, I would say, because lots of business is not really relevant to learn in theory unless you have some form of business experience. So I partied quite a bit there, which was a lot of fun, and managed to grab a year abroad in Australia. Which was brilliant at the University of Queensland, so Brisbane way, and spent the best part of kind of a year there selecting modules that allowed me to have a Monday and a Friday off, so I could go surfing at the beach with all of the other international students, and then kind of came back to the UK, finished off my degree. And had absolutely no idea what I wanted to be still, even though I'd learned a myriad of different things about, I don't know, the operations of a business and financial and management accounting and all of these really important things that mean nothing when you're kind of 18 to 22. So to be honest with you, I was a little bit lost, and maybe I am still a little bit lost. No, I'm not now. I'm feeling much more content and on a good path, but as many postgraduates do, I decided that the solution to feeling lost was actually to to go to Southeast Asia and South America and try and find myself. So by find myself, I mean, again, drink probably a little bit too much booze and go around and see the sights and meet lots of interesting people, and came back from that, and still had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, but ended up applying for an internship, a 3-month internship at a company where there were actually no real employees at that point, a really baby startup called crowdcube.com. And the plan was never really to stay there. I was set on a path to go and do a graduate scheme at Procter & Gamble, which would massively have pleased my careers advisors at school, because that was the path that everyone needed to take. And yeah, with Darren and Luke at Crowdcube, I kind of just fell in love with the kind of startup culture and ethos of, on day one, I remember Darren saying to me, don't worry if you don't know what you're doing. Neither Luke or I know what we're doing either. So we're all just kind of shooting from the hip. And I was like, yeah, I like that. I think I'm quite good at shooting from the hip. Maybe I'll kind of get along here. And yeah, look, I fell in love with the concept behind that business and the kind of democratization of finance, but also really, and lots of credit needs to go out to the guys that from day one, they just said, yeah, you own the kind of customer and operations side of the business. We know you've got no experience, but none of us have in that section really. So you'll be as good as us. Go. And that opportunity really kind of set me up. As you can probably imagine, I never ended up going to my Procter & Gamble graduate scheme. And much to my mother's dismay, I'm not sure she's still forgiven me yet, but she was furious that I turned down like a 50% pay rise on my pittance of money that I was earning at Crowdcube as an intern to not go and do the proper thing. But yeah, that kind of kicked off my foray into the world of startups and financial technology. And I spent the best part of 7-8 years at Crowdcube. And my time there started off as kind of a jack of all trades, master of none on the customer and operations side, more of a kind of operations manager, but I dealt really with all of the clients, and went all the way through then to kind of closing out my time there as the ops director, managing all of the entrepreneur side of the business, from kind of account management, sales and some of that stuff, sales ops, all the way through to the kind of compliance side and everything in between as well. Focusing a lot really then on how we could scale the business and grow out beyond the UK into Europe and the US and beyond. And yeah, for me, it was a really formative experience. I came in with absolutely no experience at all, and just kind of learn like you do when there's no one to lean on. You just have to kind of figure things out for yourself. And learn from the people around you as much as you can. But yeah, a brilliant few years at Crowdcube, and I really reflect and look back fondly at my time there. I think it raised the best part of kind of 500 million odd pounds for 800, 900 or so companies, and had the pleasure of raising for the very first rounds of lots of companies that sit at the kind of pinnacle of our startup ethos. Guys like Free Trade, Revolut, Brewdog, Monzo, lots of those guys before they were famous, and then grew some somewhat larger egos, and rightly so, their businesses became a lot bigger. So yeah, during my Crowdcube time as well, I dived into doing an MBA at Exeter University, and that was a 4IR technology and sustainability MBA. I think it used to be called the One Planet MBA, but they've tweaked that. And for me, that was actually super insightful in understanding the kind of sustainable business challenges that we have, and that as business leaders are really important for us to focus on. It really kind of centered my understanding around that, and I've never really backtracked, luckily, from some of those models and theories and thoughts. But I had a brilliant kind of 3-4 years doing that, and love my time there. I think it was a really inspirational kind of remotivational boost that I needed at that point, just to do something a little bit different outside of the workplace. And then post leaving Crowdcube back in 2018, I think end of 2017, 2018, early 2018, it may well have been. I thought, as many people do, like, I've got loads of experience now. I'm the sort of guy that everyone will hire as a consultant. Like, I know everything about crowdfunding, I know everything about this, and I know everything about that. And true to form, I kind of doubled down on my own consultancy there, Exponential Spark, which is no longer with us, sadly. But it was a kind of corporate innovation consultancy, and I also worked with a lot of startups. I guess really allowing businesses to benefit from my own journey, mainly all the things that I messed up over the years at Crowdcube. But also I helped lots of guys kind of prepare, get investment ready, prepare for fundraising, and also go down the path that they actually needed to go and raise those funds. I think it's still quite a mysterious process for lots of first-time founders in particular. And it can be something that's really scary. You've got to go in a room and kind of pitch your idea, your baby, to lots of people, and 99% of them tell you it's a pile of shit. And you've got to be quite resilient to be able to kind of go through that. So I worked with some really interesting clients there, guys like Propellier, Kudu, Godwin Group, Wild Beer, a whole host of others. But I really missed being actually in a business. And I think for me it was about being a part of a journey, not just telling people how they could improve their journey. It's about being part of that. And I think I'm quite mission driven as a person. So Darren, who is the CEO at Crowdcube, he got back in touch, and we started chatting about a few ideas that we had around the kind of open banking space, and a couple of problems that we've been trying to solve for small businesses, and we'd heard came up time and time again, kind of actually facilitating seamless, simple payments, B2B payments from customers and suppliers to really efficiently solve kind of cash flow problems. And along with Pete, who is another alumni of Crowdcube as well, we set up a company called Juno. And Juno really was trying to reinvent bank payments using open banking. So I guess, creating that kind of simple, seamless, fast, secure payments for small businesses. And early 2020, we kicked things off, and we're really fortunate, and after a lot of hard work, actually raised the best part of $1.5 million from some brilliant investors, Lakestar, Six FinTech, and a few others as well, and started to build out that business. And to be honest with you, I look back on it now, and it was going incredibly well. Unfortunately, as often happens, or occasionally happens in these instances, there were some issues that we couldn't overcome with the investors, which might have to go into on another podcast. It's quite a long and involved story, but unfortunately, we weren't able to release that last tranche of funding, which left us in this kind of precarious position of either needing to raise cash in 30 days or shut the business down. So sadly, we chose the latter option, and I think someone is going to fill that space. I think the idea was brilliant. and the opportunity there is a big one. So I'm quite sad that didn't work. But ultimately, by that hurdle being stuck in my way, I then met Adam and Thorir. I, as my spontaneous personality often dictates, decided that I'd move to Sweden on a kind of whim to live with my partner, who's Swedish. Still going through this. This was about 6 months ago. Still going through the work permit now. In case you're wondering, I think because I'm British, Swedish people are looking at it and saying, "Yeah, back of the line. You post Brexit, you made a lot of work for us, so you're coming last in this race." But yeah, I had the opportunity to meet those guys, and it was a real kind of meeting of minds. And everything really was born, and that's where I am now. So yeah, like in a real nutshell, everything is a social finance company for Gen Z and young millennials, basically creating the financial experience that the younger generations actually want. And no doubt we'll kind of pick the bones out of that a little bit later. But yeah, that leaves me where I am now in Sweden, in sunny Sweden, with this beautiful gold painting behind me, working on everything with the guys out here, and I couldn't be happier.
Awesome story. And just for people wondering, everything is the company name.
Yeah, everything. So everything's the company name, and it is. You can imagine it's not the easiest to get up the Google search rankings, but yeah, everything is the company name. Yeah, joineverything.com.
So, and of course I will put the links into the show notes. Awesome. A couple of things I want to dive deeper into. Where do we start? Let's start with, you mentioned that there have been a couple of forming parts of your life. I would like to dive deeper into you working inside of Crowdcube, and you mentioned like going really from an intern perspective, doing the day-to-day operational things that an intern is doing, then basically growing up inside of that organization. What have been specific forming moments for you, and maybe as well people who helped you to form yourself?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question, and I think there are probably a couple. So one of the things that I found that I found most challenging, but also probably one of the most kind of valuable lessons I learned. So I learned it from our CFO at Crowdcube there, Bill. Who's a rock star CFO. He was the CFO at MySpace. I think you remember that social media company that kind of no longer exists, but also Rated People and a whole host of others, and a good leader in his own right. And one of the things that when you go through a kind of, it's almost like felt like a family oriented business in the early days when you got kind of 5, 10, 15 employees, and you're friends with everyone because that's just how it works. And as we started to grow a little bit larger and go past that kind of 15, 20, and I was having to learn how to hire well and made some kind of mistakes on that front. But I think one of the things I hadn't really realized was that it's not a good idea to try and be best friends with everyone in the company, and actually it doesn't work as a leader or a manager. And I think there's probably a distinction between the two. But it was a hard lesson because I ended up really struggling for a period of about 6 months to have these kind of really close personal and effective business relationships, and ultimately kind of failed on that front. And I remember sitting there and chatting with Bill about this, and he was like, you don't need to be everyone's best friend. And I think it's actually important that you're not everyone's best friend. Like having that kind of emotional intelligence and supporting people and understanding people and having their back is important. But it doesn't mean that you need to spend all of your time outside of work with these people as well. And in fact, it's going to be challenging for you if you do. So actually trying to extract myself from some of those relationships was difficult, but it was the right thing to do, and it actually did balance the kind of power dynamic and my own political sway as well, and ability to drive change in and amongst the team quite significantly. But yeah, that's one of those really important lessons that I wish I'd known on day one, because I'd probably saved myself 6 months of emotional anguish of having to try and extract myself from friendships. When you see, it's like, if you're trying to cancel someone out of your life, it's pretty hard to do it when you see them every day, like 8 hours a day. It becomes a difficult situation. So for me, that was one of my really formative experiences. And I think another one actually was probably where were we, 2014, 2015-ish. So we'd spoken to the guys at Balderson, who were our investors, one of our early investors at Crowdcube. And we were trying to understand how we achieved some of the really aggressive kind of growth targets that they and we were pushing for. And ultimately they told us that instead of waiting for kind of 3-6 months for the development cycle to catch up, can you not throw people at the problem? Like, you just raised a big load of cash, let's throw some people at the problem. We'll solve out all the development and process stuff later. And that kind of worked, and we did kind of increase the key numbers that we were focusing on. There was like volume of pitches funded, like total revenue generated from pitches, like your average fee, like all of the like volume of investment that was going through the platform, and we did manage to spike some of that, but it caused an almighty issue going forwards, where we grew without thinking about what that scale could or should look like. And unfortunately, I think it was 2015, end of 2015, 2016, we grew a bit and then started flatlining. And it kind of massively ate into our margins, because we had like 25% increase on an increased workforce. And we were stuck in this awful position. I remember sitting there with Darren, Luke, and the guys talking about, okay, so now we need to cut costs. Like, what's the quickest way to cut costs is to actually remove some of these senior people. So we went through this huge round of hiring, which was like, hooray, we're hiring, we're growing. Everyone was like, culturally, the culture was brilliant. It was amazing. Everyone was loving life at Crowdcube, and then you have to chop 25% of the workforce, and that was like heartbreaking. I remember Darren standing up in front of the company. He was actually like crying as he said it, but it was completely self-inflicted. Unfortunately, like looking back on it now, at the time we hadn't necessarily. It was quite raw. Hadn't necessarily realised, but it was completely self-inflicted, and that's one of those moments where it was really tough actually to have to pick from the people in my team. Some of these guys, unfortunately, are not going to be able to stay with us, and some of the really important, I guess, like they perhaps were deemed to not be the really important senior leaders, but there were some of the senior guys who were obviously being paid some of the higher wages. These guys had to go as well, and then we kind of had to make do going forward. So that's one of those lessons that, like, I'll never make that mistake again. And I see the warning signs coming a mile off of, actually, do we need to grow at 400%? Could we just grow at 300% and not throw capital at this problem? Can we solve it by being more efficient? Like, there are a whole load of other things that we could have done to really get to B from A, but chose what was in essence the easiest answer.
Yeah, nice learnings. Yeah, it's always interesting to hear these things, because people in similar situation would do the same and would learn the same over time as well.
I know, I know, and I kind of wish I do wonder, reflecting back, why we got that advice from our VC. You must have seen this play out before. I was a bit surprised that had come from those guys. But I think actually, just lastly on the kind of formative side, there, the guys in particular that really helped me. I wouldn't say necessarily that I learned huge volumes specifically from them, but they actually helped me to massively believe in myself and my own ability. Were Darren and Luke, and the guys, like I said, from day one, they just said, look, we trust you, dude. Like, what you say goes, and if that's your decision, that's your decision. And they guided me and nudged me here and there, but to kind of let, I think I was 22 at that point, to let someone kind of loose to that extent who had absolutely no experience, I thought that was quite brave from their point of view. And having kind of gone through that process myself and seen lots of other founders at work, it can be very difficult to let go and allow people, trust people, and allow people to be accountable and give them that autonomy. And that's one of the things that's really shaped my own kind of leadership and nurturing style. Like I'm a firm believer that it's the right approach. If you've hired the right people, give them the room to succeed and fail. And without doing that, you're number one, you're never going to be able to actually unload enough as a founder to be a big business. Like it's really important. So those guys as well were hugely important in my Crowdcube journey and in kind of allowing me to optimize myself and learn and believe in my ability.
Yeah, it's great to have this early on in your career, having people and leaders who are like really empowering you, because I truly believe in that as well. And I've seen in a very large corporate in my history in IKEA, there's the leadership style is similar, and I wouldn't be where I am without the leaders in my life in the same way.
Yeah, no, it's vital, but it's a really hard thing to do as a founder. Like it's not a natural approach just to allow people to go away. I think go away and do and also to actually be accountable enough to fail. Like it's really tough. I think part of the way that it's been managed, or it can be managed well, is in setting the right like cultural framework, setting the right values and setting the right kind of objectives and key results across the business to allow people to have their own little creative patch that they own, and the autonomy within the right kind of path. So you're all going at least in the right direction.
Yeah. I would like to jump into you mentoring and advising and coaching startups. So you mentioned earlier that kind of the career advice you got wasn't really properly. Now that you have worked with a lot of startups in different ways, how do you look back? Do you see patterns of people who are ending up founding startups similar to yours, or are there no things that are aligned or similar than your story?
Yeah, that's that. I guess I've never necessarily thought about it, and I think since I went through the kind of career and career mentorship process back in whenever it was 2005, 2006. I think things have probably changed quite a bit more. It became when I was at Crowdcube, it became kind of on trend to be a startup entrepreneur and founder. So I think lots more people will and do think about it now. I think because of that, and also probably because of the accessibility of funding in the UK in particular, which actually guys like Crowdcube helped a lot with. I think lots more people are trying to kind of go down that path, but unfortunately, I think there's probably a lot of people that are not right in terms of their kind of mental capacity, because it's not the easy option. And actually, you need to either have learnt in earlier life, or be willing to go through the capacity of being beaten down and failing a lot, and reflecting on kind of failure as a learning opportunity, and that took me some time to get my head around, and I often wonder if I actually hadn't had a kind of lightweight introduction, as I see it, to Crowdcube, whether or not I would have gone on to found any businesses. I don't know. I think the pathway, sometimes, I don't know whether it's, I don't know what it is, the universe just pointing you in the right direction. Things just happen. But I was dead set to go down a completely different path. So yeah, I think as long as you're willing to learn and be open, and have a growth mindset, you can be an entrepreneur. But I think some people are naturally a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more safe. It's not a safe option. Like, there have been plenty of times in my career when I haven't had any money because, unlike all of my peers who went down a different path and had kind of a steady income, I decided to risk it again and take basically no salary for X period of time to build something up that I really believed in. But I think you either have that passion to build and create, and probably be willing to kind of accept a little bit of risk, or it's perhaps not embedded in you. And I think that's probably more important than being pointed down that direction by a kind of careers advisor.
Yeah. If you say risk is a key part of it, what would be one of the, or maybe the top skill you would say founders should have? Is it maybe towards making money out of nothing or something, or what is the thing that or the number one skill that helps a startup founder to be successful?
Oh, that's like asking you to pick your favorite child. I think it's personally, there is not one skill, but I think there are a whole array. However, I think the thing that I risk is not it. Like, you have to have a tolerance to risk. I think that's important. But the one thing that I've kind of already mentioned, I think, is really important, and that's that resilient mindset, and being able to adapt and learn from failure. Like, for me, I think that's ultimately vital. Like, anyone can come up with a good idea. I don't think coming up with the idea is the hard part in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I think the second, the execution is 100%. It's 99% execution. That's the hard part. But the hard part about the execution is not the learning, and it's not the understanding how to do it. Like, you can learn all that stuff from a textbook. You can speak to other founders. The hard part, which no one can actually teach you, is when the shit hits the fan for like the 5th time in a month, and you're like, this is hopeless. No one believes in what we're doing. Like, we can't even like onboard 10 customers. Like, no one wants the product. It's to have that. If you truly are going on the right path, and you do really believe in what you're doing, and sometimes there's an important lesson in giving up early when you're not. But having that ability to just get up again, and say, okay, yeah, that didn't go so well. What can I learn from that? How can we do it better next time? Let's go again. And that mindset it's super tough to learn. And it's even more tough to learn when you've got your money on the line, when actually, if you do fail, you might not be able to pay your mortgage or whatever it is. Like, it becomes much more, becomes no longer just a kind of theoretical, or would be hard to do that. It becomes like a real kind of almost like a life or death thing. So having that utmost belief in your idea yourself, and picking yourself up time and time again, it is just like, for me, that's that you won't find an entrepreneur out there that doesn't have that skill in abundance. A good entrepreneur out there doesn't have that skill in abundance.
Yeah. How important is it connected to that? Is it to be connected to others and maybe have a mentor or someone who has done it before, and they kind of keep you a little bit calmer or keep you on track and say, hey, you will manage? Or is it really just truly about yourself?
No, I think the latter. I think that, sorry, the former. I think it can be a really lonely experience, actually, and particularly much more often for first-time founders. Like, by the time you've gone through the rungs, you normally have a natural birth of people that you can speak to, either from previous businesses or previous relationships, or investors, or other founders that you know, and you have that understanding of who your support bubble can be. But if you're fresh to the world of starting a business, the natural, your natural inclination, and this is probably true of many entrepreneurs, is, yeah, no, I can do all of this on my own. I don't need anyone's help. And it's absolutely the wrong way to look at it, and it means you end up with a really kind of lonely experience where you got no one to bounce your troubles off. So I don't necessarily, it doesn't need to specifically be a mentor or a coach or anything. I think just having someone who can empathize with your experiences, someone that's been through it, someone that is also going through it, like just having the ability to kind of offload, just naturally from a human perspective, offloading some of those troubles, almost kind of you feel that kind of relief. It's not you on your own, and as you end up going through phases of running more and more businesses, you realize that it's really important to have that support network from day one, and actually that everything doesn't need to be solved by yourself. Actually, it's best if everything isn't solved by yourself. Like, solve the stuff that you're best at, let the best people solve the things that you're not, and that's when that kind of early hiring and bring in the right people and having that network around you can be really valuable. And I think in doing that, it's important to spend that time away and book it into your schedule to go and meet with an entrepreneurs network, or go and do some networking, or sit down to a dinner with a whole host of entrepreneurs. There's tons of things you can do in London where you can just share and chat to each other and get some ideas about some of the problems and things that you can't overcome. Like, it's much easier now than it was 10 years ago when lots of entrepreneurs, if you didn't have money or raised investment, you kind of were on your own, particularly down in Exeter where we were. Like, we didn't really know anyone, but yeah, it's challenging if you have to try and run through that of your own accord and without any support.
If we go forward, you founding your first business alone, so starting as an intern, growing inside of Crowdcube, doing the MBA, and then you finally said, okay, I will build my own business and I will be a founder. What led you to that path?
I think it's yeah. So I spent the best part of, like I said, 7 years watching other founders go through this kind of emotional roller coaster as such, and the benefits and the pitfalls and the ups and the downs. But ultimately, what I saw was a lot of people that were incredibly passionate about what they were doing. And in spite of the really difficult times, like, on the balance of it, people loved their jobs. And I looked into, like, all of my friends, everyone else that was doing their own thing, working for big companies, like, no more than a third of them said, yes, I absolutely love what I do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's tough, but I love it. Like, most people just kind of get by, and it's a way of earning money, and that's how they earn their fun tokens for the weekend and holidays, and they get paid well, but they don't really feel that engaged in their job. So I think I realized that like I felt like I had learned a lot about entrepreneurship from spending almost every day with founders, some good, some bad, some indifferent, and had a real feel for what makes a good entrepreneur and how to craft a good business and execute it, raise funds, do all of that jazz. So for me, it was a case of like I didn't even think about doing something else. Like I knew very early on into my time in Crowdcube, kind of 2-3 years, I was like, yeah, I want this for me. It's just, when have I learned enough? When do I have something that I think is relevant? So yeah, I think that's why I jumped in. And I can't really imagine having done anything else. I think it would have been a real shock to go into a big corporate. Although before everything, I had thought, do you know what, I'm gonna throw myself into the big world with, I don't know, like a True Layer or a Tink, like these like late stage startups that they can pay big pay packets. Like that's what I need at this stage in my career, and then ultimately started another company. So I think if you're going down that path, like I've just resigned myself to say, okay, look, that's what I do now. I'm addicted to the ups and downs, and I love the challenge and the mission and the kind of creative process of building something that people love. So yeah, for me, the first company that I started after being involved in Crowdcube was my consultancy, and I don't necessarily think it fits the kind of core journey, but ultimately it was fantastic. I love the flexibility and the freedom of working for myself. But I missed like I said, I missed the journey. So yeah, founding Juno was just kind of the next step back into what I saw as the high growth, high potential, like scary, everything's breaking because we're moving too fast type business. That was what I loved. Like I loved I guess I loved the kind of excitement and who knows what happens next week. Could be anything. Like business could go bust, and one time that did happen, which wasn't so great. But also we could land our investment with Lakestar. We could like acquire like these big partnerships with some cracking companies like we did as well, and that unknown and the pace of movement, I think in the early stage of a journey it's kind of addictive, and it's really motivating as well. Like it's exciting to wake up and be like, what's going to happen this week? Whereas if I was doing my kind of night or 8 till 7 in a big, if I was in the Procter and Gamble or whoever it was, I'm not sure I'd have those same questions to answer on a week by week basis.
Yes, slightly different speed.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have to ask you, because you're the expert, and everyone from the startup ecosystem will kill me if I don't ask you. Fundraising. You mentioned already that's something a lot of people get wrong. I don't want to go too deep into it because I guess we could fill a full podcast episode around that. What are 3 main tips on how startups can be more efficient and more effective, specifically on fundraising? Let's say a startup founder who has never done a fundraising at all, but needs money.
Yeah. So I think your first port of call, which is super important, is trying to understand like why do you need this cash? How much do you need? And what type of funding do you need? I know it can be, everyone's seen Dragon's Den. You think, yeah, equity funding is what I need. Like I'm on the path to being the next, I don't know, the next Stripe or whatever it is. But actually getting past that first funding stage, it might not be equity that you need. So spending some time. And there are tons of resources out there working out, like, do you need? Can you get some debt funding? Is equity right? Are there lots of grants out there? It might be that you work in clean tech or some deep tech. Can you get R&D tax credits that can kind of help get you to that point? Because I see a lot of entrepreneurs trying to raise really early. before actually they've kind of proved their MVP, before they've got even the kind of the beginnings of a product market fit. And it's like an unbelievable uphill battle. You're not going to get, unless you've got the best idea in the world, like you've got a validated cure for cancer, and you don't need product market fit because you're walking around the streets like Jesus healing people. Then like you need to have some of those kind of basic measures and metrics in place to be able to give investors the confidence that that you are something worth investing in. And if they add capital, so business plus capital equals kind of semi-guaranteed growth. Like that's the equation. So I would say find your right funding method. I think if you are going to go down the equity route, what lots of founders don't necessarily understand or aren't necessarily willing to commit to is the time it takes. So the lucky few that have been through the fundraising mill before will know that a big kind of proportion of this comes from out of process conversation, so networking and speaking to lots of people about fundraising. And I think as you go through the founder journey, you'll realize how important it is to maintain these connections and networks for the future. But what lots of people do not do is they'll go out and start messaging on LinkedIn and sign up to angel network events and start going to kind of pitch at these kind of specific events without actually thinking about who are my warm connections, like who do I know, how do I start to get these links into people that maybe small angel investors are. Do any of my friends, family, do any of these guys, can they stick in small amounts? Because that very first amount, particularly people that are new to fundraising at Crowdcube, the first tranche of fundraising came from Luke and Darren and the guys kind of going around and selling a few of their things and getting their family to invest and like getting people in headlocks at Christmas and saying everyone sell their Christmas presents type thing. So it's a real grind. And it doesn't come easy, but lots of the time you'll know people in your network that are willing to introduce you. So I think that's another kind of key kickoff fundraising tip from me. And also expect it to be like hard and long, and most people to not be interested. And lots of people to kind of say no, but you just need to kind of keep plugging away, and eventually some of these connections will lead to people that are willing to help. And I think a real tip on this kind of networking around your existing network is, even if people aren't interested, more often than not, if someone can't help, they'll be willing, if they can't help because they feel like they kind of let you down a little bit, they'll be willing to introduce you to someone who might be able to. So if you open up the tentacles enough, like a little octopus, you just keep bouncing around until you can find some people that are interested. And look, if you spend 6 months and you can't find a single person that's interested, maybe the business isn't the right one for fundraising. So I would say that's a second tip. The using your own network and creating that kind of initial tranche of funding that really kicks things off. And it's much easier to walk into an angel meeting and say, we got 45,000 already lined up, we're raising 150K. And I think the third one, and this again, it doesn't come naturally to a founder that's used to kind of talking about their business, is when you're out there and you're speaking to investors, you need to, when you're building out that pitch deck and when you're building out the elevator pitch, you need to think about what they want to know. And it's not don't spend 4 slides and 25 minutes just explaining how the product works. Like, there are loads of formats out there, but it's surprising. I still get like quite a lot of pitch decks into my inbox, and it's surprising how often people spend so much time on the product, but not about the questions that investors are going to actually be asking in their head. Like, is this a proper market opportunity? Is it a growing market? Who are the team? Like, are these guys like properly the right team? Like, is there founder market fit as well as kind of product market fit here? Like, are they executors? Like, what are they? What's the wider vision here? Like, what are the pain points, particularly for customers? So it's not a case of explaining your product and then adding the other things either side. Like, really think hard about what investors want to know. And spend some time hashing it out before you go out and formally start pitching to people. Ping it past an investor and get some proper feedback on the deck before you kind of live show it out there in the wild and start pitching at angel events and start doing some of these meetings. So yeah, that would be my third top tip.
Great, thank you. Let's go to everything. The company name, everything. Mm-hmm. So first, of course, how did you end up with the name Everything?
Yeah, so it was an interesting one. So it used to be called Lit. Obviously, it's a company focused on the kind of the social generation. So creating the financial experience that those guys actually want. But it was called Lit because that's cool. And that was kind of Gen Z lingo. And then we started working with a company called Creed Media, who are one of the kind of foremost Gen Z marketing agencies on this planet. And they worked with lots of like music companies. They have a huge army of kind of serious influencers. And they said, you sound like, the word they used was, you sound like chuggies. And we were like, sorry, what? And it turns out a chuggy is the Gen Z word for a millennial trying to be cool and look like a Gen Z. And true to form, that was exactly what we're doing. So we went through a whole kind of branding exercise where we knew where we wanted to get to, but we worked with Creed Media to kind of validate our assumptions, and ended up just kind of brainstorming various different ideas and names, and that's the one that landed. I think in reality the idea behind it was that the everything gives you everything. So it gives you everything in your finances. It's not for everyone, but you've got the chance of winning everything through the rewards on the platform, earning everything. So it was centered around that word, and it just kind of stuck. I think it's quite catchy, although it's an absolute disaster to try and get it to the top of the Google rankings. But that's probably a whole nother podcast's worth of content there that I'm definitely not qualified enough for.
But did you then? So interesting that you worked with a branding agency or marketing agency early on. What led you to go to them instead of just using the other name? Because I know a lot of startups, they just, let's go with this name, let's move it and let's figure it out.
Yeah, so interestingly, we actually raised a small investment round. So we raised a kind of pre-seed of so about 500,000 ish. I guess it's not a small pre-seed, really, thinking about it in general terms, but about 500K, and then we got some cash as well that wasn't equity from MasterCard, about 1.4 million. So at that point, we had the luxury of some brilliant investors, and there are some great guys in everything. So some of the founders of Truecaller that are in an angel collective now called Frampted. Albin Johansson, who's the founder of and CEO at Axel Arigato, Sujay Tile, who's the CEO of Merimar, a whole host of other guys as well. So we got some great advice around that, and actually as part of that funding round, that the guys from the founders at Creed Media also invested. And they were like, guys, like we love the concept. We love the idea of creating a lifestyle brand around finance that actually makes finance social, that makes it rewarding, that makes it exciting. And they said, look, come in with us and work with us. We will give you like a crazy rate that was an investor special. Like they obviously don't invest in that many companies. So I think we had the luxury of having that opportunity that probably lots of startups who are undercapitalized or haven't raised investment yet, or don't have that quality of investor in their very first round, which is probably lots. That they wouldn't have those opportunities. So if we were bootstrapping, like we never would have gone down that path. But we were lucky to secure a pretty sizable funding round to kick things off.
Yeah, makes sense. So you already mentioned it a couple of times. I would like to get the understanding of what everything is about. But before, let's talk about the target group. So for whom is it?
Yeah, so we're targeting what we call, and it's morphed a little bit over the last kind of 6 to 9 months. So we're targeting what we call the social generation, and the kind of rationale behind that is that this is a generation of people that are growing rapidly. Everyone lives their lives, spend a lot of their lives on social media. But it's primarily, and our initial target audience, and it's not exclusively these guys, but in our kind of digital marketing testing and our paid ads, it was primarily Gen Zs and then younger millennials that really connected with our content. And these guys, look, so if you just look at Gen Zs in particular, they'll soon be 40% of the global population. They're the fastest growing cohort in terms of economic growth. I think they make about 40%. It's almost 40% of online buying decisions. Like they are without a shadow of a doubt one of the most important generations, if not the most important generation to focus on in the next 5 years in the finance space. Because you think about it, they're also going to get the wealth of boomers handed down to them. So they're on track to be the most important generation for finance. But actually they're the most underserved. There are almost no financial products created specifically for this kind of younger generation. And there's a very specific reason for that. And it's because they want, the Gen Z in particular, have completely distinct needs from that of older generations. And actually millennials are a little bit more flexible, which is why if you look at financial products right now, you look at the kind of Monzos, the Revoluts and those guys, they span across those bands, because finance has always been a completely private thing, and millennials and older generations are absolutely fine with that. That's what they expect. Like, finance is transactional, it's private. And these guys in particular, actually, the Monzos, the Revoluts, the kind of Curves, Free Trades, these guys, they've changed the game in terms of user experience around finance, and it looks good and it kind of works well now. But it's still ultimately a lonely experience. You do finance and you do it on your own. That's just the way it is. And that is not how the younger generation live their lives. They are digitally native, yes, but they're also inherently social, and much more so than any other generation, because they were kind of born into it, and they expect it in lots of the rest of their products. In the finance space, you got the likes of kind of Wall Street Bets, doing for the investment space. They're socializing investment. There's actually an app called shares.com as well, that are starting to look into this stuff. And then you've got, I don't know, look at Peloton. They've made or starting to make fitness social. You've also got TikTok, who have made music social when you compare that to Spotify, which is single player. You've got Fortnite and Roblox and lots of these guys that have user-generated content. You can have squads and parties in the platform, and all of that stuff makes much higher engagement. I think social games and social products have an average engagement time of about 150 minutes a day, whereas banking products have an average engagement time of 3 minutes a day per user. So like for this particular generation and these particular generations, the social generation that already have that within their blood, that they already love, like we want to turn something that's always been private to be kind of effortlessly social, and that's the kind of mission of everything.
Nice. So if I understand you right, it's basically the differentiator is building that into the product. So it's not just banking, it's a social component.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's if you imagine the spokes of a typical kind of fintech, you might have, like, in the middle you've got all of the different products, and then on the outside you've got like the community, and you've got like the events, you got this, you got like all of the things. Like, nothing happens within the product. You don't interact with anyone in the product about anything.
Yeah.
But we're creating this experience that kind of weaves together friends and creators, influence as well, through kind of rewards and excitement, making finance fun in their everyday finance. So the first of those is a MasterCard debit card, and every time it's completely free actually, but every time you spend, you've got the chance of winning between £1 and £1 million. You can win your purchases back. You can do a whole array of other things as well. But the really interesting part of it is the kind of social element that underpins that. So you can earn more with your friends, your followers, and your communities. So you invite your friends, your family, your other half, your workmates, your classmates, even just some like people you're going to go to a festival with. And the more people you invite, and the more squads you're a part of, the higher your chance of winning. Because now you've got a chance to win not just every time you pay, but also every time someone in any one of your squads spends or saves as well. And you kind of allocate that spending and saving across squads. You kind of take part in squad challenges. You can access more rewards and get additional perks and discounts by doing these kind of things together. And it creates this natural network effect that's never been possible in fintech before. But I think kind of lastly, what we've built is this kind of what we call the interaction layer. So in squads, these squads, and that's what we call them. You invite your friends into squads, but we've also got an army of about 2,500 kind of small influencers that already have online followings up to about 10, 20K, 50K in some occasions. And they're bringing in their followers into the app, and it's a revenue stream for them, for everyone that they bring in. But we've decoupled the KYC from the app, so anyone can come in and join and just be a follower. But you're not just a follower. In a squad, you kind of get unique rewards and giveaways. You can see what the creator's spending their money on. You can get exclusive access to that creator, chat to them. There are brand drops, community challenges, and you're going to get content there before you get content on any of their other platforms, be it Instagram, be it YouTube, whatever it is, because they've agreed that they'll post 1 to 2 days before on everything, and they get an upside from that. So yeah, Flow is this kind of social feed across all of the squads. And that's the thing, like that has never existed in finance before. We've put social at the heart of finance, but there's never been a reason to be social about finance before. And the reason to be social is the chance to win rewards and make finance fun and make it exciting. And that's the kind of real USP that we've got at everything. That's the guys, the rest of the fintech guys, that they're just not going to replicate that. It's a complete departure from their existing business model. So we're in here on our own, and that's quite exciting for us as well.
It definitely sounds exciting. I'm not the social generation anymore, but I would sign up straight away.
Awesome. We'll throw you to the front of the wait list.
Thank you. So How can people get part of that wait list?
Yeah, so it's really easy. You just go to joineverything.com, and you can sign up there on the landing page. I think there's the best part, including creators, the best part of about 10 odd thousand people signed up now. And the more you share it in line with how the product works, the more you share it with friends and family and people you know, the higher up the wait list you go, and we'll pay you £5 as well for every referral that comes onto the platform, signs up and starts using their card. So yeah, joineverything.com.
And is that globally available, or are you restricted to certain markets right now, or in the
Yeah,
beginning?
so we're starting in the UK. You can actually buy it because of the nature of the team. So we're based in the UK, but we've also got a hub in Iceland where all of our development team are, and another hub in Stockholm as well. So anyone who's from Sweden or Iceland, not sure how many Icelandic listeners you've got, but if anyone's there, you can sign up too. But yeah, it's primarily the UK to start with. And the first year will be focused on kind of dominating that UK market and making sure that we've got that product market fit. But we'll be coming to the rest of Europe pretty soon.
Yeah, awesome. Let's get into the last part of the podcast where I'm asking a couple of questions slightly disconnected to what we have talked until now, and maybe connected. Let's figure it out. If you can be part of a project or run a project that's impacting every human being on Earth, what project would you choose to be part of and why?
Oof, that is a good one. So I think and here's the first tenuous link to earlier. Like I grew a passion for sustainable business, and sustainable business practices in the very very early stages of being part of that MBA. So I think without knowing the exact project, I'd love to work around the spec of sustainability and climate change. I think it would be great. I'd love to have been there front and center during the last kind of climate change forum where India and China decided that they'd backtrack, and now the whole war in Ukraine seems to have just put this right to the back of everyone's agenda. So I think it's probably needed more than anything else at the minute. So yeah, look, I'd like to be part of the UK's embassy team going and putting climate change back on the political and business agenda.
Great pitch. How can people reach out to you, and where can people find you?
Okay, so you can if you want to ping me an email, you can get me at mw@joineverything.com. You'll also find me as Michael Wilkinson on LinkedIn. Most of the time, I'm pretty good at replying to requests there. So you get a kind of full suite of who I am and what I've done. But you can also follow me on Twitter. It's at MW_startups. Relatively generic. I like startups though. So and my name is Michael Wilkinson, so it kind of makes sense. So yeah, email, LinkedIn, or Twitter.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I love, by the way, your approach of how you wrote your CV on LinkedIn. I haven't seen it for a while that someone is doing really is like, these are my experiences and what I did, and these are what I've achieved. It's very, very cool. So very good example
Yeah,
for
and I think I spent a lot of time doing interviews and seeing bad CVs. So I think I learned a lot from thousands of interviews over the years around what actually what do you actually want to scan and see. So yeah, no, I think it's important.
Yeah, very great one. Awesome, Michael. Thank you very much for sharing all your knowledge. I could talk 5 hours more. There are so many questions I still have open. Maybe we can do round two one day in the future.
Absolutely. No, look, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully there'll be some useful morsels for people out there to extract and use.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to today's episode. You will find the links and resources in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support the podcast, the most impactful thing you can do is subscribing to the show on any of the podcasting platforms and give me a review. This will help me to reach more innovators around the world and bring some of you into the show. If you have any question to the guest or want to engage with me, feel free to reach out to me on social media and contact me there.